Good morning. I'm Patricia McLean, and this is my IP number 4. In this module, Pedagogic Communications, we read 6 articles on textbooks, lectures, essays, gamification, clickers, and seminars. In this video, first I'm going to talk briefly about the article on textbooks by Olson and the article on seminars by Watt. Second, I'm going to talk about how those two modes might be interrelated, and then how all 6 of the different modes might be interrelated. And third, I'm going to leave you with 2 questions to take home and think about. First, the textbook. The article by Olson left me with 2 major takeaways. The first was the importance of the textbook, and Olson highlights, written in 1980, 250 million textbooks, 50 million elementary and high school students, and that each student is probably going to have to absorb or try to absorb 32,000 pages. I think that speaks for itself. And the second takeaway was really the authority of the textbook, and that as a communication mode between a teacher and a student, I think the teacher presents the textbook. I think it's taken as read it, accept it, move on. The text by Olson speaks to that, and then it migrates a little. And let's look at the quote I have pulled from the Olson article. In that he says, no one seems to have noted that the same device for managing authority exists in written language. In referring to a text or reading a text to a class orally, or in a student's reading a text, the language orients elsewhere in the mind of the current reader. It has a transcendental source and hence is above criticism. And I think that goes to the authority of the textbook. I will say that Olson does mitigate that comment a little. He does recognize further, in another quote I provided for you, that perhaps in a more modern age, textbooks aren't quite taken quite as literally, and there is some pushback. I think we could see that in Canada, for example, a history textbook, certainly there's going to be some discussion now that the facts and figures might be correct, but there might be omissions, and an interpretation of events that took place 150 years ago might be viewed very differently than they were in 2000 and 1980 and 1960. The second one I want to talk about is the article on seminars by Watt. And my 2 main takeaways from that were, first, the development of the seminar, that it is fundamentally a circumstance where we have a small group of people talking about specialized research they've done on a topic. I think that that's a mode that we've seen a lot, and Watt even mentions that in U.S. university programs, even in 1964, the combination of the readings plus assignments plus creates a discussion that may be kind of like the seminar. And the second takeaway was the sheer sense of opportunity that it creates for students, and that they can teach themselves. And it really goes to the quote I have from Watt. And it's taken from Henry James, an excerpt from the Education of Henry James, where Henry James in particular talks about his young students chasing an idea like a hare through a dense thicket of obscure facts. And it really spoke to me, this huge opportunity for students to find that they can teach themselves, to find that they can engage in really interesting research on their own with some moderation and guidance by a teacher. So the third thing is, how do these things interact? And I think that we see in this chart there is a link between the textbook and the seminar. The textbook can be the foundation for the seminar, and that there is clearly an interrelationship between these modes that can be followed. So the 2 questions I have are, how do you see the links between these various modes and each other? And I've got some suggestions: the lecture to the essay to the seminar, the textbook to the lecture to the clickers. And the third takeaway is, are we seeing these modes in other forms? Do we see it in other formal education settings under other names? And are we seeing them also in non-formal settings? And I've got a chart here for you to think about. I didn't have a great answer for the textbook, and I'd invite you to provide me with one. With regard to the seminar, 2 things occurred to me. Is the first seminar that someone goes to show and tell in kindergarten? You bring an item, you talk about it, you talk about its importance. The other little kids ask you questions about it. And as another form of a seminar, the book club. Someone suggests a book, everyone reads the book, and they come and discuss it. So as Joe Biden would say, my time is up. Thanks for listening. References to follow. Bye-bye.